Hi everyone, welcome to Immigration Talk Show. I'm Rajni Bharara, your host. And before I move ahead, let me quickly read out a very important disclaimer. By watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. All right, after this very important disclaimer, welcome back everyone to Immigration Talk Show. I'm Rajni Bharara, your host, and today we have an incredibly important discussion lined up just for you. The immigration system in the US is constantly evolving, and recent developments have raised serious concerns. In a major shakeup, 20 immigration judges have been removed from their positions. But what does this mean for immigrants, pending cases, and for the future of US immigration policies? We are going to talk about this in today's show. And to break this all down, I have with me a very highly respected immigration attorney, Justin Rivera. So Justin is going to bring down his expertise in immigration law, and he has always been at the forefront of major immigration cases. So yes, he will help us understand how is this going to create an impact in the U.S. immigration policies. So before we talk about that, let me give a very warm welcome to Justin. Justin, hi, welcome to Immigration Talk Show once again.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's always fun to spend some time talking immigration.
Thank you so much. I know you have been, busy quite a lot, and especially with your back-to-back consultation. But still, thank you so much for taking our time and coming and doing the show. It means a lot to us, Justin.
No problem. Yeah, it's busy as we ramp up for petition filing. There's a H-1B cap quota basically next month, registration, selections, filings, all that, and then all the litigation work. Wasden LLC is doing currently. Yeah, it's busy, but in an ever changing landscape, it is nice to take a little bit of time out of it to sit here and have a conversation about what's happening and what's changing in our environment.
Right, and I'm sure our viewers also must be waiting to hear from you and also to hear your insights. So, yes, here we are, everyone. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to Immigration Talk Show. And if you have any questions related to this topic, make sure that you drop in the comments below. And with that, you can also give us a call on the number 425-436-6335. Don't forget to put the access code 988888. And yes, you can ask your questions, but by also giving us a call on this number. So yes, make sure that you do that. And in the meanwhile, let me ask my very first question related to this topic from Justin. So Justin, the sudden removal of these judges has been, I mean, it definitely has caused a stir, right? So to begin with, can you shed some light on the legal avenues available to these judges? Specifically, what recourse do they have, and is it possible for them to challenge their removal in the court?
So I know that they have a union, basically, a union that is talking about the potential litigation pursuit as a result of the firings. Now, these individuals were also the last group of like immigration judges that were being appointed by the outgoing administration. So that was the Biden administration. So with the fact that they were basically fired by the incoming administration immediately, whether or not there's a cause of action there remains to be seen. I think that you're going to see the union bring something forth. Whether or not that's going to be effective, it depends on what the courts decide. So I would say there is some potential for litigation, but nothing at this point has been filed, which usually means that they're trying to work through the process of figuring out how they're specifically going to attack these filings. In essence, these were a lot of individuals that actually hadn't even started yet. They were individuals that were taking the bench, were going to begin hearing cases. And these cases range from, asylum, permanent residence, removal. These are all cases that people are entitled to. They're going to happen whether or not these individuals are on the bench or not. But the problem becomes, I believe I saw a number that was around 3.7 million. There's currently about 3.7 million cases
Mhm.
that are pending. So the problem becomes, how long is it going to be now for these people to actually get before a judge? Because the whole purpose of putting these people up was to help expedite this caseload. And now that that's no longer the case, I think we're probably going to see a slower court system, a slower immigration court system.
Right, right. But then, Justin, also, if you can let us know that, I mean, are there any historical cases where judges have been successfully fought back? And I mean, if you can also tell us about that.
I honestly can't say off the top of my head. I mean, it's a very interesting scenario for these individuals to be in, because it's not easy to be a judge. I mean, you have to have a law degree. You have to practice for a set number of years. I believe it's 7 in this circumstance. And then you have to go through the vetting process after that in order to be appointed. And what I mean by that is, there's just not a whole lot of people who A, fit into the bucket of being a judge, and then B, want to. Because when you practice, you're typically for immigration, unless you're working for the government, you're an advocate. You're on the side of the immigrant. When you move into that judge position, you then have to take a state of neutrality, because you have to interpret the law within the confines of what it is, regardless of how, what the story of that person is, what the scenario it is that they're in. You still have to apply the law with a set of neutrality, and all of these 20 judges set an oath to do that. And so I can't give you like an exact precedent decision. I think, which is also why it's probably, there isn't any litigation that's been filed at this moment, because they're probably figuring out that avenue to proceed. But I can say definitively that the impact of the firing is a negative one for not only the individuals who have pending cases, but I think for the remainder of the judges that are still actively working. Because I think it makes those judges maybe a little more worried about their decision-making process, and whether or not that will be taken into effect when a decision is made whether or not to remove them from their jobs. So, I don't think it's a positive thing at all, and hopefully there is a cause of action that they can move forward with.
Right. And, Justin, I also would like to understand that why do you think, such a big decision was taken? And especially at around this time, where you also have said that there are 3.7 million cases pending, right? So why do you think such a big decision was taken? And, if we talk about one of President Trump's administration member, who is Elon Musk, when he bought Twitter, I think he also fired 80% of his staff, right? So do you think
Yeah.
it has something to do with that too?
So I'm not sure if it's directly Doge related, but I definitely think that there's a desire in the Trump administration to shrink federal government's role.
Yeah.
I think that this decision is more nefarious than that, in that I think that this decision is done for the intent of slowing the overall processing of immigration cases. These individuals were appointed by Biden, which immediately is going to be something that the Trump administration dislikes, because above all else, he values his perceived loyalty in the idea that his people need to be in these positions. So I think that because they were Biden hires, maybe that's probably the primary issue behind it. But the bigger point of it, which I think is something that you've seen bleed out into all types of immigration, is that they want to muck up the system as much as possible so that it's difficult. The more difficult they believe they make the system, the more restrictive immigration becomes. And you've seen that already abroad at the consulates. The State Department has already changed the interview waiver, which
Yeah.
used to be allowed. It used to allow individuals with a visa that had expired within 48 months to submit their passport and not go to an interview. They've changed it back to 12. Well, it hasn't been 12 since, I believe, 2020 during COVID. And the whole reason of that is they want to make it harder. They want to make this more difficult for everyone, because despite what anyone says, and I think, he's only been in office like a month, but I think we can all come together and admit to one another at this point that restrictive immigration policies are what's going to be executed by this administration. There is not, this desire that some people seem to think existed, where we're going to come in and legal immigration is going to be something that we're going to be okay with, and we're going to keep pushing it forward. That's not happening. The RFE rate increase has already begun within employment-based immigration cases. The standard for the EB2 and IW has already been hiked up, just like it was under the last Trump administration. And I'm guaranteeing you're going to see more stringent processing of I-485 applications. So all of that leads me to believe in Congress with the firing of these judges, that what you're going to see is just a continued desire to make everything less efficient.
All right, all right. But then, Justin, what about, the pending 3.7 million cases that, you already have mentioned about? So with the dismissal of these judges, what impact do you foresee on this already, overwhelming caseload?
It just makes it worse. I mean, it just makes it longer. It just makes it take longer for people. Now, the administration has expanded the expedited removal criteria. So expedited removal is a process in which someone can be removed from the United States without having to appear before an immigration judge. However, only individuals that have been in the U.S. for less than 2 years qualify. So anyone that's been in the United States for 2 or more years that has a pending case is still going to be entitled to their day in court. They still have their opportunity to go before a judge. So these cases do not just go away. They don't disappear or stop the application process. What it does is it draws it out. And when it's drawn out, policies may begin to be changed that make it harder for these people, if not, borderline impossible, for them to actually find a way into a legal permanent status. Asylum, people that are in removal, all these individuals, they're in a tenuous situation because a lot of times they feel, and maybe even evidentiary can prove, that returning to their country of origin will result in harm to them. And there are tons of different ways that harm can be shown. Asylum is a very complex system. So it can be a life and death situation for these individuals. And so I think for them, there are people who are probably, understandably frustrated at this process because they are aware of it and they realize that it's probably going to mean it takes even longer for them to get their opportunity, get their day in court. But the truth of it is none of these people's cases just disappear off the docket. The docket still stands with the numbers that it holds, a number that will probably increase. It's clearly the goal of the administration to see that number not increase exponentially because they want to restrict asylum as tightly as they can. And we've already seen that, I think, at the border. But the 3.7 million that's there today will be the 3.7 million that's there tomorrow. And there is not currently enough judges in place to operate the system in an efficient manner. There were studies that said that something like 300 additional judges are presently needed in order to address the backlog that currently exists. So removing 20 when you need 300, it's just screwing the system more. And I think that's the point.
Okay. So, Justin, but if they're trying to make the systems strict or whatever that they're trying to do with the removal of these 20 judges, but then is there a possibility that there will be a risk that this could completely stall certain cases and people will really have to wait for several years for longer delays?
I think that's the goal. I think that's the goal. I think the goal, honestly, too, is to make the U.S. immigration system so difficult to navigate that people give up and don't want to utilize it. I think that's their long-term strategy.
Okay. Right. So I've been getting a lot of questions from the viewers too. Guys, please continue posting your questions in the comment section and we'll be taking them in a bit. And meanwhile, let me ask you more questions from Justin related to this topic that we have prepared for him. So, Justin, also, considering the administration stance on immigration, Do you think that this action could indicate a shift in enforcement policies also? And if yes, what message does the removal of these judges send about the current administration's approach?
Well, I think it kind of gets back to what we had discussed a little bit earlier. I think that restrictive immigration is going to be the name of the game for the next 4 years. I think we already know that there is already more stringently enforced in immigration policies. I mean, there's already been issues with raids taking place at what are typically seen as protected areas. I believe even when I think I even saw this morning or yesterday before we got on this call that a judge actually had to enter some sort of order basically blocking ICE from carrying out raids at church, because they previously, the Biden administration had put implementations in place where basically they said, look, you can't carry out raids in these places, not at a church, not at a school, not at a doctor's office, because those are essential places. You know, you're in the U.S., you can worship, your kids go to school here, and you and your kids need access to health care, right? That was done away with by the Trump administration. They have removed it and basically said it's a case-by-case basis, but that's a completely BS statement because they're actively doing this. And so we know that it's not a case-by-case basis. They're pursuing areas that are traditionally safe. That is stringent enforcement, about as stringent as enforcement can be. And I think the desire of that is they have to now, they ran a political campaign on the back of saying that they are going to be the most deportation heavy administration essentially that there has ever been. You know, they tie societal issues and problems to immigration, too much immigration. That's the issue. But now they have to show the receipts. They have to show that they're able to carry out the things that they said they were going to do. And in order to do that, they're going to have to do these kinds of activities because there's just no other way for them to hit their goals, their perceived numerical goals. It's pretty evident that this is something that they want to put at the forefront of the voters' minds, their voters' minds in particular. And so we're going to probably see that continue over the course of the next 4 years, unless like this recent action by a judge blocking it occurs. And I think that part of the issue too is, to be blunt, immigration enforcement by the federal government requires a certain level of state assistance. And what I mean by that is local law enforcement can, and when they want to, will play a role in carrying out enforcement actions of immigration. But it really depends on the state, can even depend on the city. How willing is that entity willing to, how willing are they to take on assistance roles in cases when at the end of the day, they have budgets that are assigned to, you know, find violent crime, protect their citizens from individuals committing crimes, stuff like that. So we'll see what that give and take looks like. I know there's already been, you know, rumblings from the Trump administration about, you know, can they withhold federal funding from cities that are sanctuary cities? Can they withhold federal funding from these institutions if they're not willing to comply? All of that is eventually going to probably, like, more likely than not, come out to the courts, to be an issue for the courts to decide, unless you just see the Trump administration move off and pursue avenues where they're going to get assistance. But yeah, I think the removal of the judges, it's a signal, if people were not already aware of where immigration was heading over the next 4 years, this should pretty much give you a definitive understanding that they're not trying to make the process better. They're trying to make the process more difficult. I think I would come out and say worse and less efficient.
Right, but Justin, what do you think about their stance on, you know, them saying we are only after illegal immigration, not the legal ones? So, you know, every time there's a discussion or a debate on immigration and how hard or how strict they are being on immigration, they always come over, their administration always say that we are not against legal immigration, or their supporters also, they say that we're not against legal immigration. If you're legally here, if you're documented, if you have the right papers. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, so they're liars. Straight up, they're liars. And here's one thing I will say. Donald Trump himself, as the president, may actually hold those beliefs. But the person who's the architect of his immigration policy is Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller does not. Stephen Miller is against immigration. He is an immigration restrictive person who has actively fought while they were out of office over the last 4 years to get rid of things like the H-4 EAD. Stephen Miller does not like immigration, and Stephen Miller is in a position of authority to help set the tone for what policies the government is going to issue for all forms of immigration, be they for legal pathways or quote unquote illegal, which I will use the word undocumented until I am shot. I am not calling a human being illegal. So for this administration, their focus may be on, at the outset, illegal immigration or undocumented people immigration. But the underlying desire of the administration is restrictivism. They do not want any form of immigration. And I think just by virtue of the way the consulates are now behaving should tell you that. Okay? If they were okay with legal immigration, why get rid of the visa interview waivers? Why make it more difficult to get a visa at a consulate? And I really want people to think about this in tandem, because I'm sure there are people that are listening to this that are saying that's not true. They're cool with legal immigration. Okay. The State Department has already begun to make statements that they're going to cut down the number of consular officers that are available at consulates, meaning it's going to be less people available to handle visa interviews. The visa interview waiver program gave them an avenue through which they did not have to see certain people that qualified. That 48 months since a visa expiration, they didn't have to see these people. These people could be run through the system. If nothing pops up, you grant a visa. So what would be the point of getting rid of the waiver program and shrinking your workforce? Right. It's to make it take longer. That's the point. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to spend time using the rules in place to make things more difficult and more restrictive. And that's already being played out across legal immigration. I can promise you, I correspond constantly with other attorneys that can speak to the fact that they are seeing requests for evidence on H's, on L's, on almost all kinds of work visas that did not exist a month ago. And all of these things have the purpose of restricting immigration, or at least curtailing it to make it more difficult. And so that would be my rebuttal to anyone who says, "Oh no, their only issue is for people that have entered the country, without being inspected, people that are trying to seek asylum." That may be the cudgel with which they beat the general population over the head, but their underlying desire is to restrict immigration across all fronts.
Wow. I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of our viewers, they must be sad or unhappy to hear this, and especially with the H-1B season coming up. And because a lot of them are, gearing up and preparing themselves for the H-1B season. But do you think these policies or their decision will also impact the H-1B season that is coming up, Justin?
Yeah, I think you're going to see adjudicative trends. You're going to see, like I said, an increase of RFEs that almost always coincides with an increase of denials. Look, whether or not the Trump administration took over, there have always been changes to the H-1B system that were supposed to be implemented in January, that went into effect in January. And the fact of that is, that was always going to change the way the game was played a little bit. The way that the cases were adjudicated, the way that the qualifications for an H-1B were measured by officers. What has changed in tandem with that is the overarching desire of USCIS, the desire of CBP, the desire of the consulates. I think we're no longer looking at least personally, a level of neutrality that may have existed over the previous administration. And that's going to lead to more difficult and stringent adjudications. So yeah, I think it will be harder this year for CAP than it was for people in the previous year. And we'll see how it plays out. The fact of the matter is that, as attorneys, it's our job to change with the times. It's our job to put our clients in situations and circumstances where they have the highest probability of a positive outcome. By CAP, we're already going to have gone through kind of the first round of H-1Bs in the year. Those people who unfortunately had to file extensions in January, February, and March that maybe are in premium and they got their decisions, even if they were, adverse. there's going to be a little bit more of an understanding of what's working and what's not working. And that will obviously impact strategy for the people that are selected and the cases that are filed. Because for those that are aware or not aware, the way that the H-1B lottery system works is it's beneficiary centric. So company wants to sponsor you. They put you into the lottery online by filling out your passport information and biographical information. They hit submit. You go in. The company pays a $215 fee. Lottery gets run, and then the beneficiary is picked. That beneficiary can have their H-1B filed with any company that agreed to sponsor them. But it's only ran for that person one time. So what that means is no matter how many companies say they'll sponsor your H-1B, you only take up one slot. So once that happens, people get selection notices. Selection notice says, hey, your H-1B got picked. You're in the master's cap or the bachelor's cap. Here's when you got it. Here's where you file, and here's how long you have. Usually you get 3 months to file. So by the time we get to that 3-month period where it's time to file, I think we're going to have data, hard data on what the denial rates look like, what is working and what isn't working. And hopefully we can move that forward to get as many, approved cases as possible. I will say, just speaking personally about my profession, I think that the copy and paste days that may have worked under Biden, I think are over. I think when you're preparing an H-1B, it needs to be specific to the position. You need to be able to show definitive information as to what the person's going to be doing. I don't think you can just say, working with Java anymore for a software developer and expect USCIS to say, great, that's a specialty occupation, you're approved. I think you're going to need more evidence. I think you're going to need a better, stronger support letter and support documentation for your petitions. And we'll see what that looks like. But I do know, sorry, my nose. But I do know that, there are definitely firms that it's a copy paste job. They got X amount of positions that are software developer, software engineer, whatever. SOC code, copy, paste, send it into USCIS and see what happens. Be ready for pushback on that. Be ready for the request for evidence to come in because you're going to get what you pay for. And I'll just leave it at that.
Right. So, guys, wow. You need the right guidance. You need the right attorney, especially at around this time more than ever. So make sure that you get in touch with attorney Justin Rivera. You can give him a call on his number. We are going to display the details on screen. Yes, they are here. You can give him a call on the number 844-592-7336. I would like to repeat the number again, 844-592-7336. You can also email him. His email ID is support@wasden.law. And you can also visit the website, which is www.wasden.law. So make sure that you get in touch with him because right now is the time when you need the right kind of attorney beside you and the right kind of guidance for your cases and for your concerns. All right.
Yeah.
So
just real quick, I want to say something just real quick. Sorry, just 2 seconds.
no,
Because
please take your time. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm working on a case right now that relates to this, a previous case where I want everyone to be aware of this. If you're a young person that has a company that's sponsoring you in the lottery, if you're an old person and you're in India and you're having someone sponsor you in the lottery, maybe you didn't just graduate from school. Everyone across the board, I want everyone to take away this from this conversation. If you take away anything, take away this. You cannot pay your H-1B fees. That is a violation of the law. If your company agrees to sponsor you and turns around and says, hey, you need to pay us for your H-1B that was selected in the lottery, you cannot do this. It is illegal. And if USCIS ever finds out about it, or CBP when you're coming in, or the consulate when you apply for a visa, they will consider it a material misrepresentation. They will claim that you got that job because of money, not because you qualified for the position. I have unfortunately over the past 3 months learned that there are a number of companies who present themselves as U.S. employers who will sponsor people's visas. And if the case is selected in the lottery, they turn around and say, hey, you need to pay consulting fees for your selected case. You need to pay these fees, and in return, we'll file your H-1B. You cannot pay H-1B filing fees. You cannot pay the attorney fees for the case. The petitioner, who is the employer, is responsible for those fees. And the problem with U.S. immigration is the petitioner puts the beneficiary over a barrel and says, you got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Your H-1B case was picked in the lottery. You have an opportunity to get an approval and come work in the United States, probably make a lot more money than you make right now. But we don't want to pay for any of this. So we want you to pay for it. You can't do that. So I just wanted to express that right now because sorry, again, my nose. I literally have a case right now that I'm working on for a person where that is what happened to that person. And that person got put into deferred inspection with CBP. They got their visa canceled and they got removed. The incident that happened to them years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago. This incident had occurred. And they had subsequently been coming in, working on an H-1B, no problems. They weren't even with the employer that did this. However, CBP, through their methods, they're always allowed. They can look through your phone. They can look at your calls. They can look at your texts. They can look at your WhatsApp, your social media, your old resumes, anything. They were able to procure information that showed a handshake agreement for payment in return for services. Once they got that guy dead to rights on that, they had a fraud and misrepresentation finding and had him removed from the United States. He's been outside the United States now for almost 2 years, and we're still trying to find an avenue to get him back in. So I get it. I get it that it's tough to get picked in the lottery, but I think it's very important that people are aware that this practice is not legal.
Wow. I think, this information was something that viewers needed to know. I mean, this was a very crucial information. So thank you so much for sharing that with our viewers, Justin. It was very much needed. And with that, I'm still, getting a lot of questions from the viewers, which I'm going to take. But before I do that, let me very quickly, ask you this question also. Because with whatever that is happening right now, for individuals currently undergoing deportation proceedings, right? So this development must be very unsettling, right? So for them, what implications might this have for their cases, and are delays or even dismissals a possibility?
I think you're going to see delays. I think you're going to see significant delays. First off, these judges in the position they were at, they likely hadn't had cases assigned to them yet unless they were actively on the bench. If they were on the bench, then they've had cases assigned to them. Those cases have to be reassigned now. They can't just disappear. They have to go somewhere else. Where they're going to go is to another judge who already has a significant backlog. And as a result, those cases are probably going to be put at the back of the queue. Maybe some that are more pressing get moved up to somewhat. But at the end of the day, there is a delay. There is a delay, and I think the delay will likely be significant. Again, to reiterate, the expedited removal process is only for people that have been in the U.S. less than 2 years. That backlog of 3.7 million has tons, if not a majority, of people that have been in the United States for more than 2 years. So there's just no way for me to give a definitive timeline of how long it's going to be, but there will be a delay. And again, that delay is intentional. That delay is it's done with a purpose of doing it. I saw somebody's question that even said, "What were these firings politically influenced?" Yes, they are. It's definitely political influence. It is, and I think it has the dual effect of setting a precedent to delay, and also trying to have a chilling effect on active judges, worrying about what their decision-making process does to whether or not they keep their jobs.
But Justin, have you seen the removal of immigration judges on this scale before?
No, I have not, but I will also say this, and full front. This is not something I'm not in this wheelhouse of immigration constantly. I'm more so doing employment-based immigration. But I can tell you that in the time that I have been practicing, this is the first time I've heard about something like this occurring. That's not to say it hasn't happened before, but maybe the scale and size of it was just so much so that it kind of caught national attention. But I've never seen it. For the entire time that I've been practicing, which is, 8 years now, getting closer to 10 by the day as my hairline recedes. for the time I've been practicing, the goal has always been, or perceived to be, additive, meaning you want to extend and enhance. You want to make the system work faster, even if the adjudications are going in the direction that you don't want them to go. You want the process to move faster. You need more judges. Like I said, there is research that's already been conducted saying that they need right now close to 300 new judges in order to actively go after their backlog. So there's never, to my knowledge, over the years I practiced, been a decision this sweeping to eliminate this many positions. Yeah, so no, I can't say it comes with precedent. I mean, it's also just like, if we all take a step back and look at this logically, like really look at it logically, regardless of your stance on immigration, whether you're, hardline against or super for, regardless, I think there's a general desire to make the immigration process work. We want it to work. We want it to, even if, like I said, even if it doesn't give people the results they want, we want it to work and be efficient. Like any industry or any government entity, we want there to be an A, B, C, D, where we get to the end in a reasonable time frame. This isn't going to do that. This isn't going to do that, and this is not going to be beneficial to the system. So, like I said, it's just, it's to me, it's unprecedented, and I think it is a sign of the times.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for answering those questions in such a detailed and insightful way, Justin. Let me very quickly now move to our viewers' question. And before I move to the viewers' question, how about taking a small break? Because I know we have been.
I'd love to blow my nose.
All right, so guys, please be here, stay tuned. We'll be taking your questions after the short break. But right now, let's go for a short break. You guys don't go anywhere, because next comes the answers to your questions. Stay tuned with Immigration Talk Show. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Welcome back, everyone, to Immigration Talk Show. I'm Rajni Bharara, your host, and today we are having a very important discussion with immigration attorney Justin Rivera on the topic: the 20 judges removed from their positions. What impact does it have on immigration? And yes, so we have taken our questions, and Justin have answered them beautifully and also in detail. But now it's time for us to take the viewers' questions, because I know they have been waiting for quite some time now. So let me not delay it anymore and quickly take Geeta's question. So Justin, first let me take Geeta's question. Geeta says, "Hi Justin, I have a pending case in immigration court, and now I'm worried about how this will affect my hearing. If a judge is removed, what happens to the cases they were handling? Do they get reassigned immediately, or is there a risk of long delays?" What do you have to say?
So I would say that the government on its best days moves slowly. And that's when there's no changes. On its best days, the government moves slowly. So, yeah, any change, and especially a significant change like the removal of a position, is going to create delay. If something had previously been assigned, if any of these judges had something assigned to them, yeah, it's going to be assigned to another judge's docket. But that doesn't remove what the judge already had on their plate. It just becomes additive. So the judge can only handle so much. It's the truth of the matter. They can only handle so many hearings a day. They can only handle so many cases a day. They are human beings. Like, they aren't robots who can spit out, adjudication after adjudication without familiarizing themselves with the case, understanding what the client's argument is, understanding what the government's position is. All of that takes time and analysis. These can be incredibly complex cases. I have to say, specifically for the field of asylum, that is so difficult. I mean, it is so hard to show that threshold of fear of persecution, be it for, whatever reason, political ideology, religion, race, economic, all of that stuff. I mean, it is a hard threshold, and it's something that, to the credit of these judges, they don't take lightly, because at the end of the day, the person that they make that decision about can either remain in the United States or is removed back to the country that they left. And if they're removed back to the country that they left and their fear was valid, that person can die. And I know that that's a tough thing to talk about, but it's true. And as a result, these cases each are due a certain level of, and not every case is like that, obviously. There are some cases where it's just, look, green card eligibility, things like that. But the fact of the matter is, they hold a lot of power and they treat it with that level of respect. And so it's difficult for them to take on new work that has not previously been allocated to them when they're already drowning. I mean, I think probably most of us in modern day society know what it's like when a coworker, leaves unexpectedly, or, maybe someone has to take time off because they're ill, or their job is removed. That work just gets dumped to somebody else. And that person who has that work dumped on them initially has that, like, holy crap response of, like, now all this is mine. Now they're going to do a better job of it because they have people in positions. We obviously know that the judge isn't running around setting their own dockets or, putting that together. There are systems in place to handle that for them, but those systems are already slow. So when you take something that's slow and you muck it up, it's going to make it slower. So yeah, I would say expect delays, and I do apologize for being so negative this whole time. But yes, I think if I'm giving you my honest answer, I would expect that there to be delays throughout the process.
Yeah, but that's the truth, right? And truth has to be told. So, but Justin, so these applicants, should they now? What should they do? Should they wait, or should they take any other step?
I mean, you're stuck in a holding pattern. If you got an attorney, talk to them, see what they think or what their options are. But if your next step is appearing before a judge, you wait to appear before the judge. And that's kind of that's where you are in the process, Now, there are probably a host of other factors that go into this, like, do people have work authorization that needs to be extended incrementally? Do they have to do status check-ins, things like that? All of that stuff obviously continues to roll throughout this process. But that's something where I say, go talk to your attorney, or an attorney that is specialized within, the specifics of your case. So yeah, I think they're in a waiting game for the most part.
Okay. All right. Thank you again for answering the question. And Geeta, thank you so much for being here, for joining the webinar, and for posting your questions. If you have follow ups, continue posting them. Meanwhile, let me take Andre's question. Andre is here and says, I've heard concerns that this could be politically motivated. I think you already have answered this. How much
Yeah.
influence does this administration have over immigration judges? And could this be an attempt to push through policy changes? What do you have to say about this, Justin?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it was definitely politically motivated. Like there's no way to say otherwise. I just don't think that you take individuals that have been vetted the way that a judge is vetted before they are given a position for their to determine their eligibility and then subsequently eliminate them. I don't think you can make any other argument than it's politically motivated. As we've discussed ad nauseum throughout this conversation, which ad nauseum, by the way, just Latin for to the point of nausea. I'm not trying to sound smart. It's just something I write all day. But it's been discussed ad nauseum that this is already a broken system. This is already a system that is backlogged significantly, that needs help. To remove help is to make the system more difficult, to make the system less efficient, to make the system worse. And I again stress that is the point, and that is the reason for the season. It is why it has been done. It is because they want to make this harder.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Andre, I hope you have got your answer. In case you're looking for more, continue posting your follow ups. Geeta is actually back and she says, is this something that happens often or is it usual for so many judges to be removed at the same time? What precedent, if any, is there for this kind of situation? I think we have already discussed this, but Justin, still, if you would like to give an answer.
I think for me it's unprecedented personally. It's not something I've seen in the time that I've been practicing. Now, perhaps if you were talking to somebody who is a little more grizzled and has done this for a longer period of time, maybe this was something that took place before. But for as long as I've practiced, there has always been a backlog. There has always been a problem with the processing of these immigration cases. And again, the desire has seemingly been additive, a desire to increase the number of judges so that we could expedite the process, so that we could move cases through the system quicker. And again, even that fundamentally, just the notion of adding judges doesn't mean that there's somehow going to be an increase in approved cases. It doesn't mean that more people are going to be granted asylum or, less people are going to be granted asylum. It just means people have their day in court, their opportunity to be heard that they are entitled to. And so it's nonsense. It's nonsense is the best way I can put it. There's no benefit to anyone by this decision being made. The only point of it is to hide behind the idea of government waste and terminate positions that are genuinely needed. And then that's it. I mean, I can't say it any more plainly than that. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, to give another example, I think would just to put it in context for anybody. If you have a school system where there's 30 kids to a class and the parents are complaining that 30 kids to a class is too many kids, every logical human being would say, well, I guess we need more teachers. No one is looking at that problem and saying, you know what we need? 5 less teachers. Put 5 less teachers in there, and that's going to fix the problem. No, it's not. Now your class sizes are increasing because every class now has to absorb kids that were in classes that were by another teacher. It's the same thing that's happening here. There is no way that anyone could look at this logically and provide an answer that is anything other than this was done to make things more difficult. This was done to make it harder to be a judge. This was done so that they have more cases. This was done so that the judges are put on notice, that if they're adjudicating cases with too high of an approval percentage, maybe they get looked at more closely. So I think that's entirely the purpose behind the decision.
Wow, I think this was the best example that anyone could give. I think now even the supporters who are supporting this decision of the administration are also going to think about their decision, Justin. So
I doubt it. I'm sure they'll still keep, talking about how it saved the government money, which, sorry, not to be political, but, if you're going to tell me that a judge's salary being saved is saving this country money while you continue to subsidize oil companies, we can have that conversation. But yeah, I cannot imagine that 20 judges' salaries is somehow adding a bunch of money back into the purse strings of America.
Right. Okay, so Geeta, I hope you have got your answer. In case you're looking for more, continue posting your follow-ups. Meanwhile, let me take William's question. William says, for people in detention who are waiting for bond hearing, could this cause a significant delay? Would they have to remain in detention longer because of these changes?
I genuinely can't give you a straight answer on that because it's outside the wheelhouse of my practicing. My assumption would just be yes, but I can't give you I can't give you a straight up answer, honestly. I mean, specifically speaking for immigration, anyone that has to go before a judge for any purpose, if it's for an immigration related issue, I think that it's going to be harder now. It's just going to be delayed across the board, generally speaking, because there's not that influx that was supposed to be there of additional judges or judges that were already on the bench. So yeah, I think that anything at this point, I think you're going to be looking at an extension of.
Okay, so William, thank you so much for your question. And thank you so much, Justin, for the answer. Justin, before we take Emily's question, we have few Facebook viewers' question lined up. If we can
Well, I
take
like
those.
Emily's because she's bringing up stuff that we hadn't actually even
Okay, let me take
discussed.
Emily's then. So Emily says the recent termination didn't only affect immigration judges, several management positions were also cut, and no one is talking about them. It was political. Doyle wrote on LinkedIn, nothing, the time and resources spent on hiring judges during the last administration. If you start making it political, it really does blow up the system and blow up people's faith in the system. Said Doyle in an interview, none of us were there to drive a political agenda. We were there to do our jobs. What do you have to say, Justin, about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it echoes kind of the sentiment that I was stating, but I think that it's important to bring that up too. Emily, to your point, saying that not only judges were removed, but several management positions. Remember, the federal government is run by people. People are in there day in, day out doing jobs. And those jobs, for the most part, are jobs that are part of a system. They're part of a process. They're not supposed to be politically driven. At the end of the day, these people that are in these positions are doing jobs that they've been given with the hope of helping to improve the efficiency of the federal government. And the removal of any of these positions is going to have a chilling effect. I think the other thing that we haven't even talked about that bears, a thought process throughout this conversation is, what does this do for people who want to work in this field? What does this do for people that actually want to become a judge or want to be in those positions that have been eliminated or fired? Does that chill their desire to even be a part of it? Of course it does. I mean, you can't say that you're confident. I mean, I think I can't tell you, I would never want to do that job. I would never want to be an immigration judge. I could not sit on a bench and tell somebody whether or not they were entitled to remain in the United States. I think it's such a difficult thing to do. So the fact that there were even people there trying to do it in the first place is, to me, a minor miracle. But then to tell these people, you're not needed, we're getting rid of your positions, and some of them haven't even started. There are people that didn't even begin taking cases that went through the entire process. Like I think Emily said, they go through the entire process to be hired. The time and effort they've spent, the time and effort the government spent, the resources it took to do all of this, and then to just throw it all away to move forward a political agenda, to move forward a desire to just make something less efficient that is already inefficient. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I thank you, Emily, for bringing that up. And I think it does bear stating that, yes, while the judges are the ones getting the forefront of the attention, there were also other individuals impacted by this. And those individuals do jobs day in and day out that are supposed to promote the efficiency of a system or program. And they're no longer existing means other people have to take these up, or we have to now wait for new people to be hired in positions. And it's, with the way the current administration is acting, I can't believe that they have a desire to hire a lot more people unless those people are working at the border.
Mm-hmm. But Justin, do you think now the aspirants are going to also, think for a plan B?
I'm sorry?
So now, the aspirants, the ones that who wants to become an immigration judge, or
Oh,
maybe would have had plans. They might be thinking of a plan B now.
Yeah, I can tell you they're going to keep being attorneys because everybody's hiring a bunch right now. So, which I also would encourage anyone that thinks, hey, Trump administration's immigration policies are going to be okay for legal immigrants. Go look at the hiring rates for firms right now in immigration. Just go look. Go look. You can see the job postings online. Why do you think all these law firms are hiring so many attorneys all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
They know that there's going to be an influx of business because all of these cases are going to be more stringently adjudicated, which means your filings get harder, your RFEs go up. All of this is going to result in more business for the industry in which I work. And I promise you, it's not business we asked for. We've already been busy. But I think that if, economics, money talks. If you that plus what we're looking at right now with the way adjudications are going, it ensures me that there will be a lot of work over the next 4 years.
Okay, so good luck to you, Justin, and to all the other
Thanks.
immigration attorneys out there. And but thank you so much, Emily, for your question. That was a really interesting one. And Justin, thank you so much for answering it. And let me very quickly, because we don't have much time, we have,
Yeah.
I think, few minutes. So let me very quickly share the screen and show those Facebook questions. Okay, this anonymous member actually posted this question 11 hours back, and he says, "Help, please! I got I-20 from Texas State and UTA. From Texas State, I got full tuition waive, and the COA is 18K. And from UTA, I got 8K scholarship, making the COA 21,400. If I wish to pursue marketing, which would be greater option to choose for to secure a visa as well as course-wise." What do you have to say, Justin?
Sorry, I'm chuckling because I can't make college choice decisions for you, buddy. You're gonna have to do that one on your own. They're both fine schools. I went to UT San Antonio for my undergrad. I went to San Marvelous, as it's called, several times to visit Texas State while I was there. Great school. Never been to UT Arlington, but know plenty of people that have gone there. Long as the school is accredited, as long as everything's set up in the SEVP portal system, as long as that's there and you're working with a DSL, you should be fine to pursue an F1 visa at either institute of higher education. I live in Texas, by the way, too. So if you do end up coming to Texas, enjoy it. It is very hot. But you don't pay some taxes that other places pay. So that's nice. But yeah, I can't really say, look, you got an I-20 at both schools. You have to show the ability to pay when you're going to be on an F1. You have to show that you can support yourself while you're in school. Work authorization is fairly tight when you're on an F1, so you got to work with your DSL, with your OPT and your CPT options. So I would work with them. Pursuing a degree in marketing, interesting field choice. Good luck to you. But I'm not going to say between the two schools. I've been to Texas State. I loved it. It's a pretty cool school. But I've heard a lot of people that have graduated from UT Arlington, and they've done well for themselves. So I think either way, you're good. Doesn't matter. You're going to have to pull the trigger on that yourself, bud.
Yeah, that's a decision for you to make, right? So, okay, let's move to our next viewer question. So quickly, if we can jump to our next question. Okay, so this is another anonymous person, and he says, "I'm on OPT. I want to travel to India in April, return back in May first week, and my OPT is ending on 17th June. Did anyone travel from Canada to USA on F1 visa from Montreal Airport or Toronto Airport? My question is, where will be the immigration in USA or pre-clearance in Canada, and what they asked?" Okay.
I think
I'm
you
not
go
sure
through
if this is
pre-clearance.
the question. Immigration
If I
attorney,
remember,
but if you'd like to answer. Yeah.
yeah, sorry. If I just remember right, I did a lot of work with kids that were working on TNs in Canada, and if I remember right, you go through immigration in Canada, if I remember correctly. CBP will look at you there when you're going through the airport. So I think now, there's other workarounds, ESTA, Nexus, all that kind of stuff, but it looks like you're on an F1. So yeah, I think you'll deal with pre-clearance if I remember right. They'll probably ask you a couple questions about your work and your studies. I don't know if you're still in school anymore. If you're not in school anymore and you're working subject to your OPT, there's documents out there. It'll say what you need to bring. Look it up. Pretty sure you're going to want to bring like your most recent I-20, maybe a letter from your employer showing that they still need you, that you're employed. Couple things, your EAD, obviously, things like that, your visa. So you'll need all those documents. You can look those up online. They're pretty publicly available, but I kind of gave you the rundown of what it is you need for it. But yeah, be prepared to be asked about your employment. If you are not employed, don't travel. Don't. It's not worth the risk. Are you allowed to do it? Yes, but it's not worth the risk. And funny thing about OPT, you have a set number of unemployment days. So for your basic OPT, I believe it's 90. You can only have up to 90 days of unemployment on OPT. And then your STEM OPT, I think it goes up to 120 if you're entitled to STEM OPT. One of the most interesting things that I have learned in immigration law, because a lot of times in immigration law, you leave the United States, they don't really care what you're doing outside the United States. One of those rare exceptions is the accrual of unemployment days while you are on OPT or STEM OPT. Your unemployment days accrue whether or not you are inside or outside the United States. So it's not like your 6 years on H-1B where when you leave the US, your clock stops and then restarts when you come in. No, that clock runs in perpetuity. It runs whether you're here or you're not here. So that's why I try to tell people, yeah, you can be unemployed and leave the country and re-enter on OPT. But for one thing, you're making the officer's job harder because now you're having to explain that you don't have an employer, but you're entitled to work and you should be let back into the United States. The second thing is those OPT unemployment days still count. And I promise you this, because it's going to be the reason for the season when we get there. I promise you this. You guys can mark this in your calendar. Justin had this idea today. We're going to see if it's true. The trend that will come up for quota cases when people file from F1 to H1B is going to be twofold for denial. OPT unemployment days and unpaid internships that should have been paid internships. And they're going to say that those are violations of OPT status. Wow. And that's going to be how they try to catch and deny change of statuses this year. I've already seen it start to come in for people who are changing status, maybe going over to H4 from H1B and they've never traveled. And as a result of never traveling, their entire immigration record gets laid bare up to the last point that they traveled. And if they have those OPT unemployment days, they're bringing those back, even if they haven't been on that visa for years. So what they're doing now is the playbook for what they're going to do later. It's just going to be on a larger scale. So yes, at the end of the day, basically, yes, you can travel, but everyone on OPT right now needs to be cautious about their unemployment days. And I think you need to be very careful with working unpaid internships.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Another shocker, but just guys, stay tuned for more because you never know, especially with this administration, right, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, like we kind of said before, maybe next time we speak, we can get a little bit more intensive into the lottery and F1 to H1B and all that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you're available next, we would like to definitely schedule a show related to H1B lottery, and we can discuss more about H1B in detail. And we, of course, we are going to have a lot of questions from the viewers related to H1B because we have started getting through emails, WhatsApp. So definitely.
Absolutely. All right, sounds good. Well, I'm over for time, so right. I'm going to have to go. It was a pleasure speaking with you, though. This is always a fun opportunity to have this level of engagement, and thank you to everybody else that submitted questions and listened to me ramble for an hour.
Thank you so much, Justin, for being here. Your insights were invaluable, and especially, unpacking this very complex issue. So, but before we conclude, do you have any last advice for people, who are navigating this these immigration problems, especially around this time?
Yeah, I think just generally speaking, difficult does not mean impossible. I think that, the US still, as it is presently today, is still a country I think worth living in. I think it's a country worth pursuing the American dream, being a part of. And I think that right now, more than ever, unfortunately, I think I felt very much like a politician when I just said that, more than ever. But I think more than ever, you have to be looking at what your representation is. The attorneys, your attorney representation needs to be strong now. I think that what happened before during the Biden administration is, I think we relaxed ourselves a little bit and we allowed ourselves to fall into trends and behaviors that were permissible for the administration at the time, but is no longer permissible for who's at hand or the administration that's in a position of authority now. So just be ready, because I think we're in a different era, and that doesn't mean that people's cases aren't going to be approved. Like I will say, we have approvals post Trump coming into administration. So there has not been a faucet completely turned off in a way that, the faucet's gone down, but I don't think it's been turned off. So, I said a lot of negative stuff today, a lot of stuff that was probably not great for people to hear. But at the end of the day, I do think that the U.S. immigration system, is flawed as it is, still has legitimate avenues for people to come to this country that can benefit this country. I got a phone call prior to this phone call with a woman who works specifically with children that have autism. And she is from Brazil, and she is looking for an opportunity for herself after the expiration of her J1 visa. There are avenues. They're not easy, but there are avenues. And even though they may be more difficult or annoying or time-consuming than we want, there are still avenues for people, good people, who genuinely benefit the U.S. community. I promise you this. I don't think you could sit anybody down in this country that would say, hey, do you think the U.S. should have more, people that can provide specific childcare and education to autistic kids, and have that person say, no, we don't need those people. We do need those people. And so those are those people are still out there, and there's still avenues for them to get in the U.S. And that's my job, and people in my industry's job is to help those people. And no matter how difficult the circumstances are, or how difficult the administration or people in positions of authority make it, the law, to an extent, will still be on our side, and those avenues will still exist. And that's it.
Right. And that can only happen when you have the right attorney by your side. So, guys, make sure that you have the right attorney by your side to give you the right kind of advice. And especially, like I said, especially at around this time. So, make sure that you get in touch with Justin. You can give him a call on the number 844-592-7336. I would like to repeat it again, 844-592-7336. You can also email him. His email ID is support@wasden.law. You can also visit his website, which is www.wasden.law. Thank you so much, Justin, for being here. Can't wait to do another episode, H1B episode with you. Really looking forward to that. But thank you so much again for being here, and you have a great day ahead.
Thank you very much for your time. You have a good rest of your day too, all right?
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for posting your amazing questions. We'll be back with another great episode with Justin, and that's going to be dedicated to H1B. So get your H1B questions ready for that episode. We'll be back with Justin very soon. Until then, you guys keep watching, keep subscribing, and keep sharing these videos with your friends who need advice and who need information related to these topics. But for now, I'll have to take your leave. Make sure that you are always subscribed to Immigration Talk Show. I'm Rajni Bharara signing off for now. Bye. Take care.